Okay, so you probably heard about the basics of camp life, but today I'm here to share the real tea. The friendships, the romance, what really happens after hours, and some juicy questions that were sent to me. So I'm just going to go straight into it and just start off right with the tea. The first thing that I'm going to talk about is the friendships and the cliques. Yes, there are different friendship groups, and I guess therefore you can say that there are cliques. It's honestly just human nature when you're living so closely together, but you will find your people. I personally tried to talk to everyone and was considered a floater by my friends, but I liked that and I found that it worked for me. But I still had my really close friends, and you'll definitely have that. My advice, just talk to everyone, especially during orientation, and naturally you'll fall into your friendship group. But just don't stress and think that you won't find somebody, because I promise you there will be somebody that you'll become friends with. Okay, and now I want to talk about camp romances, which personally I think I have quite the experience. So yes, I was one of those people that got sucked into the camp romance, and I will tell you now, for a while we tried to keep it quiet. I only told some of my friends, but it does not stay a secret for long. Also, the head staff will know, but I personally think that we did a pretty good job hiding it from my campers, because my campers thought that I was dating one of my other friends, but that also happens a lot. But you might want to know how camp romances come to be when you literally get 3 hours a day off, especially for someone like me who was with somebody from the support staff. So I really didn't get to see him that much during the day, but pretty much at my camp we were off from about 9:30 p.m. if we weren't on OD that night, and our curfew was midnight. But before that you tend to get to know each other during orientation, nights off, and if you're both counselors then days off as well. We were lucky because he was support staff, so he had his own room without any kids. As for other people at camp, camp is a big place, so there are definitely places for you to go. Most nights friends would hang out in like the common areas, so there were definitely places that couples could sneak off to, I guess you could say, that are a little bit more hidden away. Okay, now I'm going to talk about what really happens on nights off and days off. Like I said, if you weren't on duty, you were off at 9:30 p.m. and the curfew was midnight. I did get a question about whether or not people broke curfew, and as far as I know, nobody did, but I don't know for sure, and I don't know what would happen if you did. We need to return our phones back to the field office, and then we need to sign in, and the supervisors that are on duty that night wait there for us, so I think it would be pretty difficult to stay out past curfew. And honestly, you're so tired, I don't think that that's something that you'd be thinking about. And as for our days off, we were off at 6 p.m. the day before, and then when we came back, our curfew was again midnight the next day. So a lot of the time we would have someone drive us to the train station, and then we would go to Philly together. Most people do go out at night, like clubbing and stuff, but not all the time. For people that are underage, you can go out and sometimes you can get into some bars, but you just can't drink there. So don't worry if you're underage and you think that you can't go out with all your friends. But if you are underage or you just don't like to do that, there is usually somebody that doesn't want to go out, or somebody that will come back pretty early in the night. Okay, before I get into the questions, I thought I would just quickly touch on American staff versus international staff. So at my camp, the American staff were only previous campers, if that makes sense. So they all pretty much grew up there and they know each other pretty well. Yes, there are friendships between the two and you do often talk to each other, but I would say for me personally and most of the international staff at my camp, we definitely gravitated towards each other a little bit more, just like the Americans kind of gravitated to each other as well. I think that it just comes down to lifestyle and what you're used to. So really it's just kind of human nature. But you definitely do talk to each other. It's not like there's this great divide. I wouldn't say that it was bad at all, but it was just different. Okay, so now I'm going to get into your questions, and these are quite juicy. I posted this in a summer camp group on Facebook and I got a fair few messages, so I thought I would answer the questions for you. Okay, question 1, are people really hooking up at camp, and is it like Love Island? I'm gonna say yes. Just think you put a whole bunch of 18 to 25-year-olds together in a secluded place. There are definitely people that are going to be getting together. As for it being like Love Island in that sense, yes, but there aren't often times where people are swapping partners. But I do know people who had gotten with somebody and then gotten with somebody else. Can male and female staff go into the same dorms, or where is the space for that? At my camp, no, because most of us are general counselors, so we all share a bunk with the kids. We are one big camp, but we're split into boys camp on one side of the path and then girls camp on the other. And unless you have an activity on the other side of camp, you probably aren't going to go over there. During orientation, yes, but there probably will be some kind of speculation of a little bit of romance. I went to one of my friends' cabins on boys' camp and people started questioning if we had a thing. But I'm not 100% sure about camps with specialists. We had maybe 5 international specialists that had their own room without campers, and yes, they were allowed to have boys and girls hang out together, and I was allowed in my boyfriend's room. So I think if there are no kids, then it's okay. But like I said, there are definitely places to go where you can hang out with each other, and if you're just talking about friends, everyone mingles, no matter if you're a boy or a girl, at night time anyway. Everyone just kind of hangs out in common spaces together. But if you're not talking about friends, let's just say that most lights are turned off at night and there are definitely dark places to go. Okay, question 3. What do trips look like to local theme parks and how often does this happen? At my camp, we had 3 field trips, I think. 1 to an arcade, 1 to a theme park, and 1 to a water park. I think we had once a week, every week, in the middle of camp. We could go on whatever rides we wanted to, as long as we stayed with our kids, obviously. It actually is a lot of fun. They were some of my favorite days because you get to know your kids in a different way. At some places we would stay together as one bunk, and then at other places we would kind of break up into smaller groups. I think for us it was kind of just up to my co's, my campers, and my bunk, like what we wanted to do. So you can go on whatever rides you want to, stop for lunch in the middle of the day, or eat before or after, but just make sure that you keep track of your kids at all times. The only thing that I will say is that we weren't allowed to have our phones at the parks, which for me personally, I think that we should be allowed to. We did know where our supervisors were, but like at places like the water park and the theme park, they're fairly big for people that had never been there before. And I do understand why we aren't allowed them, like you don't want us being on our phones all day, but personally, I think that we should be able to have them, just in case of an emergency. But again, this was just my camp, and it is going to be some of the funnest days that you have at camp. Okay, question 4, is there drama between staff? I think that there are definitely tiffs between staff, but I wouldn't necessarily call it drama. You definitely don't get along with everyone, and yes, people will hear something small and then turn it into something much bigger, but I can't think of anything that was necessarily drama. I would just suggest to try and stay out of it altogether. It's not what you're there for, and at the end of the day, you're at a job, so you want to remain as professional as possible. Question 5, do people really get camp goggles? Yes, definitely. The reason that camp crushes feel so intense is because there are no phones, no distractions, so everything that you feel just kind of feels 100 times stronger. In saying that, we actually had a fair few couples that people thought were just a camp fling because of camp goggles that are actually dating now. But I don't see anything wrong with a little crush, even if it is because of camp goggles. Okay, question 6, are staff allowed to drink on days off? Yes, you can drink, but I would suggest not going too hard. Just remember that you need to go back to your work in a day's time and you want to be able to do your job without any problems. You also want to actually take the time to rest since it is your day off. But we did get a talking to by our camp director about drinking on our days off, so I'm sure you can guess why. Just be careful and don't drink too much. It's not the reason why you go to work at a summer camp. You can do all of that when you finish camp and you go traveling afterwards. Question 7, what's the food budget at camp and other places that you go to where they provide food? Does it come out of your pay? I would imagine at most camps, if not every camp, there is no budget for food at camp, and it definitely should not be taken out of your wage. I personally think that there is a fair amount of food offered at camp, and I didn't think that the food was bad considering, but I'm not a picky eater. We were allowed to have one serve, and if you wanted a little bit more on your plate, you could just ask the server for a little bit more and they would give it to you, and then they would call you up for seconds. We also had an open salad bar, and you could ask for bread, peanut butter, and jam if you were still hungry or you didn't like the food that they were offering. When we went on field trips, they would give us a card which had about $20 $10 on it for food. I honestly can't remember the exact amount, but it was enough for food. But I would recommend taking your own card or some cash in case you want to buy more food or some souvenirs. But honestly, the card that they give you is enough for food if you don't want to take your own personal money. Question 8, and I'm just going to read this straight off my laptop because it's a little bit wordy. Do you get to choose your camper's age? What age do you recommend counselling for your first time? Older ones might be more mature, but younger ones could be more crazy, fun, and a little bit less embarrassment. I would say yes, you are spot on there. Yes, the seniors tend to be a little bit more mature and they do their own thing, but they definitely do still have a lot of fun. I personally wouldn't do seniors because they scare the life out of me, but I met some of them down at the lake and they were lovely and they still had that kid energy. I also know people that did seniors and they absolutely loved it, so I honestly think that it comes down to personal preference. To me, reading this though, it sounds like you're more interested in doing the younger ones. And you are correct, you can be a little bit more silly. I had 7 to 8 year olds and I loved it for that reason. They were also really cuddly and they depended on you a lot, which could be a good and a bad thing. But I definitely felt a lot more exhausted at camp than the counselors that had the older kids. At my camp, they asked us what age we wanted to work with, but we didn't necessarily choose our age. I would say yes, the younger ones are definitely more needy, but you can be more silly and they will laugh at pretty much everything that you do. But the older ones are a little bit more independent and I guess you could kind of make friendships with them. I would say if you're unsure, just go somewhere in the middle. But my only advice is don't say I don't mind what age group I get, because I know people that did this and they regretted it because they didn't like their age group. Just pick one that you're leaning slightly more towards, if that makes sense. Okay, this is a long video, but I have 2 more questions left, so stay with me. Were there any forbidden relationships, like between counselors and head staff? Not at my camp, no. We did have a counselor dating a supervisor, and there were no problems with that. We also had a general counselor dating a specialist staff, and then me dating a support staff. I think people will talk and spread gossip, but no one really thinks about it in that much depth. I don't think the head staff really care what you do or who you date, as long as you do a good job at being a counselor. Okay, the last question is, did anyone get fired? At my camp, yes. And I'm sure we're not the only camp where somebody got fired. But I'm not going to say too much about it because it's not my place. But all I will say is remember that you signed a contract and your only job is to uphold that contract for about 8 weeks. So don't fall into doing what other people are doing just because they haven't gotten caught. Just don't do anything that would put you in that situation and you'll be fine. Okay, finally, because this is probably going to be my last Camp America advice video before I leave, I just want to give a couple of bits of advice, and then some people commented on my post some of their own advice, so I'm just going to share that quickly with you. Number 1, don't get caught up in the drama. Number 2, you will be tired all the time, but it's worth it for all the memories that you make. Number 3, take lots of pictures and journal every now and then, even if it's not your thing. Number 4, you will most likely hit a slump in the middle of summer, but push through and stay positive because the last half of summer goes so much faster than the first half. Don't go into it expecting to find love or to get with each other. It's not what camp is about. And then finally, I have some 2 really big pieces of advice from some people on my Facebook, so I'm going to read it straight off my laptop for you. During orientation week, as a first timer, it can sometimes be quite scary to talk to people, especially returners who already know each other. Biggest thing is, if you're a first timer, just know that returners are more than happy to talk to you and they want to get to know all the new staff because they have been in that position before. All you have to do is say hi and a conversation will start. If this is your second year, try and sit at a different table each meal with new people. I guess just like you did in your first year. It's really easy to talk and make new staff feel welcome. We don't really think about it when all the returners sit together because we're used to it. I'm going to quickly add on to that. During orientation week is my favorite week at camp because nobody knows each other yet, obviously other than the returners, but there are so many new people that you can talk to anyone. And at my camp, including the returners, everyone sat at a different table every time. You would just all go in. They actually made us go in at different times, so they would say if you're born in November or if you're wearing black or whatever, and you would go in, line up, get your food. No one would wait for each other. You would just go and sit down with whoever you went in with, and I loved it. It's so much fun. You talk to literally everyone during orientation. If your camp is different and they don't do that, definitely try to sit at a different table every single time. So that's a really good point. I'm glad that he mentioned that. Okay, this is the last piece of advice, and it's kind of got a little bit of a question in it as well. So I'm going to read it off my laptop and then I'll tell you, talk you through it. I'm a returner, but something I struggle with is how to be low maintenance throughout summer in terms of hair care, feeling confident in myself with what I'm wearing, makeup, and also about ensuring my mental health is okay, as it can sometimes be overwhelming. So this is a really good point, and I just want to remind you that camp is one of the only places in the world where you should feel no judgment. People aren't looking at you to see if you have perfect hair or perfect skin. For me personally, I struggle with scars. And for the first week of camp, I wore tinted moisturizer, but then I realized that nobody really cares. Just think about it. Do you really care what other people's hair and skin looks like? You're there to have fun, so please just don't let these things hold you back. Also, with mental health, please make sure that you're talking to somebody about the way that you're feeling, especially before you get to a bad place. My coach and I would spend a couple minutes every night on the porch just unpacking the day. It wasn't anything in depth, but even just talking about the day can help. Or just really find someone that you can talk to, or somebody back home, and tell them about your day. A little bit of talking every day will make you feel better and you won't even realize it. So yeah, camp literally changed my life in ways that I did not expect. I mean, literally, it changed my life. Look at where I am. I'm in Mexico. It just makes you appreciate so much, and it feels so nice to spend an entire summer not worrying about your phone, and you get to be with your friends every single day. So if you're thinking about it, do it. You'll never forget it. And if you liked this video, please make sure that you subscribe. I have another camp video on my channel which talks about essentials, camp life, and it answers some more questions. I also have a summer camp haul video, and the next two videos that I'll be posting are about camp must-haves and my packing video. I literally cannot believe it. So go check out my channel, subscribe, and come and follow along. At the time that you're watching this, I leave for camp tomorrow. So I have my travel vlogs and my camp vlogs coming out soon as well. Hopefully I'll see you in my next video. Bye!